Good morning, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here with you. Today is Monday, June the 9th, the year of our Lord 2025, and you're listening to Coffee. Certainly appreciate all of you joining me today. Hope you had a wonderful, wonderful summer weekend. It's that time of the year. Everybody's going on vacation. That's exciting and well deserved for all you working men and women out there. Certainly love you folks being part of my audience. Even folks that don't work, that's fine too. Love you listening. So, anyway, big weekend, obviously, on the recruiting trail for South Carolina. This has been a thing under Beamer. They've done quite well so far, recruiting, establishing inroads, and I think as we saw, I mean, gosh, there hasn't been a whole lot of coaches last very long in football around Carolina, but I think as we saw with Spurrier and to a lesser extent Muschamp, Muschamp's best class was probably that 2020 class with Tonka Hemingway and Vershawn Lee. Jordan Birch was here a minute and obviously got drafted. That was a big recruiting win. And it was coming off a 4-8 season too. But, that just kind of shows you that coaches, when they get to a school, it's like fine wine. The recruiting ability ages. Now, sometimes you can get to a point where you get past that year 4 or 5, like Spurrier did, and then all of a sudden some things change and some different people are making decisions, and then recruiting goes bad, you miss, or sometimes you don't think you're missing and you do. I seem to remember some of Coach Spurrier's classes that did not work out being ranked pretty high. A lot of guys just didn't pan out. So, but that's what I think's happening here. And, coaches don't last if they're not winning. So for those out there that say, well, it's because of winning. Yeah, it definitely is. And I always say that your season, it used to be you could have a good season and cash in January. Because that's when all the decisions were ultimately made, or most of them. That's not that way anymore. Most guys make their decision before the season kicks off, which is good, I think, for the players, because you get to concentrate on your senior year. You're not playing football on Friday night and then waking up and making these big important official visits where you have to concentrate. You're coming in for games and things like that, and you're probably still a little sleepy, but they're teenagers. They don't go to bed and they wake up super early, as I've been finding out. But it's one of those things where I think that's good for the players. It's good for the coaches too, because you don't have to sit there and worry about it. And then in January and December, you can concentrate on the transfer portal or whatever, and your current players. So it used to be that. Now, recently, probably the last 5-6 years, your season, what it does is it impacts that next class. In other words, the 2022 success at the end helped 2024, which is a hell of a class. Small class, but quality. You hated to lose Gregory and Pringle, but no class is going to remain intact 100% anymore. If you keep 60, 50, that's good. But a lot of quality in that class with Dylan Stewart, Michael Smith, Josiah Thompson, you name it. So that was a big recruiting boon, if you will. The 5 and 7 probably impacted a little bit of a slower start with 2025, along with some other things, but it finished okay. Yeah, and that was an example of having a good season paying off in December with some flips and things like that. So it's not like it doesn't happen. None of these rules are hard and fast, folks, in recruiting that we're talking about. So there we go. There we go on that. So 2026 obviously is impacted by what happened in 2024. And Carolina's done a really good job of getting out in front of this class. I mean, heck, you have Murph and Gitteron already there, the receivers, and they were supposed to be big 2026 targets. So you really you're up 2 before you even get started. And then you had some early commits like Currents and Baxter and those guys. So, really good start for the Gamecocks so far with this. Of course, this official visitors weekend this past weekend had the rare in-visit commit by 2 guys, Andrew and Aiden Harris. Check out the special here on Chief Sports South Carolina, or also on the podcast. I guess it's sort of just a Big Spur branded special. Usually I do that sometimes when there's breaking news over a weekend or something. and Aiden Harris and Andrew Harris, the Harris twins, if you will, from Weddington High School in Matthews. Just a recap for those that didn't catch it. Aiden is a D tackle. That's a very important position in recruiting this year. Is going to remind me a little bit of Tonka Hemingway skill set wise. Some compare him to others. I've heard when you're talking about just Gamecocks, I've heard everybody from Melvin Ingram to JT Surratt on him, but he's good. He's a really good player. Around 260, 265 now. Some old weights have him at 240, but same size Tonka was. Tonka was a three-sport athlete, and he'd get up to about 270 during football, and then basketball and baseball take it off of him, and you had to bulk him up. So that was it was his quickness and athleticism, and certainly Aiden Harris is tenacious, 23 and a half sacks for his career at Weddington High. And then his brother Andrew, I think, is just a big physical football player. I guess technically you're talking about him as a linebacker, type of linebacker, similar to Jerron Willis and Bam Martin Scott in that role they played in the defense, maybe somewhere else. But he's a big athletic guy. I mean, just a football player. Also a 4-star per 24/7 Sports composite. Will be a player that, has played a lot, some with his hand down, at high school. So he'll have to make the transition to playing in space. But, Clayton White and that group, they do a good job of doing that. Brad Johnson was a guy that was, serviceable to good at times as a pass rushing linebacker. You kind of look at what they're going to do with Donovan Darden, so it makes sense. He's 6'2", 235, 233, I think is what I heard. So the Harris twins are in. That's 2 more 4-star commits. That brings Carolina up to, per the composite, 5 out of the 7 committed are 4 stars or better. There's no 5 stars. It's our 4 stars. And it brought Carolina up in the 24/7 Sports rankings kind of slowly. I know on 3, they went up to about 14th. I'll explain this and kind of, I guess when they created on 3, they decided to use a different formula. 24/7 Sports rankings, they haven't changed it. They're based on composite rankings and then like a bell curve. And to kind of, for your class to kind of jump, and it will jump. It I think up to, if they get a commitment today, and I'll have more on that in a second, it'll jump, up into the 30s. But the number of commits early on impacts, you're going to be lower if you don't have the number. But what it's designed to do though at the end, and this is at the end, is teams with equal number of commits, it rates the quality players higher. In other words, it's on a curve, and if you have, it kind of ranks your players in order, and the highest ranked player in your class counts more, is the way to explain it. I'm not a mathematician. And so that's why numerically, if you're looking at the 24/7 rankings, which I hope you do, they're lower right now. Obviously, I don't blame you if you gravitate towards the higher ranked rankings, but that's why it's a numerical thing. And if I could do anything other than simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and sometimes percentages, I would get in there and tell you, but my brain would explode. I definitely don't use that side of my brain at all. It's over there having a pina colada, being like, "Oh, man, I don't want to do any calculations today, brother." So anyway, that's what's up with that. But I do expect South Carolina to continue to rise. Obviously, we talked about the high level of blue chip visitors, 19 of the 26 scheduled. And some of these guys, I believe, will rise in the rankings. But a good group beyond the Harris twins this weekend. First, before I get to the visitors, I'll tell you about a visitor that visited last weekend, KJ Johnson, 6'2.5", 6'3", defensive back, Birmingham, Alabama, Woodlawn High School. Has been a lean to Carolina for a while, had a great visit. He commits today. So his commitment will be announced today. I believe all signs are pointing to Carolina. Crystal Ball says Carolina. Good player. I mean, we've talked about back in the day, Darian Stewart, Captain Munnerlyn, defensive backs out of the state of Alabama, usually do pretty well. Darren Usher, the director of player personnel, has some ties to the state of Alabama, having worked at Auburn during the forgettable Harsin era. But he also made a lot of connections there. Keenan Britt was one of those guys. He had a connection with Aaron Nolan while he was at Auburn as well. So that's what that job is all about. It's calling in the connections, right? And so they found KJ Johnson over in Birmingham, and Birmingham's just right over I-20 through Atlanta to Columbia. And I believe that's who he'll pick today. It's a prediction, folks. I'm not spoiling any moments. Tune in. He's a high 3-star guy, but he's one of those guys you just take. Doesn't matter what his ranking is. Torian Gray loves guys like this. And, like I always say, you can take the 2 and 3 stars and make them NFL guys. You take the 5 stars and make them NFL guys. It really doesn't matter. He's going to go his own way. Fleetwood Mac, you go your own way, Torian Gray. So there you go with that. So of the visitors, and I will tell you about a couple of other defensive backs here in a second, but everybody wants to know about D tackle. And one of those guys is Noah Clark. Noah Clark from Durham, Jordan, the number 126 overall player in the country. Over the weekend, I got some tidbits I put on thebigspur.com. I did not include him. And then the minute after I put it up, somebody already mentioned some good things about Clark in the thread, so I didn't go update it, but I did get it. Said things were going extremely well with him. He's going to commit July 2nd. So obviously he'll continue with visits, NC State, Notre Dame. Talking, from what Hale's been saying, and my feeling too is that Notre Dame visit, it's probably based on what happened with Rodney Durham. I mean, before Rodney Durham visited Notre Dame, I felt like South Carolina had as great a shot as anybody, along with Tennessee. He goes to Notre Dame, they get him. I believe Notre Dame, defensive line wise, had a really good season last year. Obviously, they went to the national championship game. They need guys like Noah Clark. So the hay is not in the barn yet with him, but the word is he wants someplace that feels like home and is closer to home. So is he going to go all the way to South Bend or not? Rodney Dunham, he may have not had a problem getting on an airplane, and he's a Charlotte kid, so he can go. Those kids can go and fight the ridiculousness of the Charlotte Douglas, whatever it's called now, International Airport. If they fly Southwest, you have to walk 28 miles to get to the gate. But and it's going to be that way for a while. I've quit flying in there, and I'm not trying to trash it. I know some of you probably have to go to that airport all the time. I've been going to that airport my whole life. Just woefully unimpressed with the setup now. Not that I don't enjoy a brisk walk. It's just, my God. And if you're connected, God forbid you fly in on American and have to connect to Southwest or Spirit. I mean, Spirit, you kind of expect that, right? It costs you $10 for them to come. What if Spirit, it costs you $20 for them to come pick you up in a golf cart and take you to the terminal? Maybe not a bad way. Maybe not a bad way to spend the money. But nevertheless, Charlotte kids can go get on the airport and go. And Durham, North Carolina, obviously they have an international airport there. I'm not saying they don't, but, sometimes if you're not, the kids in the bigger cities, maybe a little more metropolitan and don't mind traveling as much. Durham is not a small place, don't get me wrong, but, close to home. Now that also, if he's a big homebody, which some are, NC State could be a factor because and they are. I think they're number 2, number 1A right now. But boy, he's a big talented guy. Like I said, another top one, almost a top 125 guy, number 126. But Noah Clark, best visit possible. It was really, really good. They felt really, really good about him. So that's the number 1 guy. Landon Duckworth, things continue to trend in the right direction. Aiden Harris talked to some of our people and said things are looking good with Landon. I based on the comments, which are VIP. Yes, I can't quote it word for word. Hale may get mad at me, right? But it just looked good based on the feedback and set a crystal ball going in. I've talked about that. I thought that Carolina had overcome some things, gotten back in the catbird seat. That's the 4-star quarterback, top 50 player in the country. Also from Jackson, Alabama. So that could be 3. You get KJ Johnson today. You've already got Keenan Britt from Oxford, Alabama, linebacker, and then you get Landon Duckworth. That's 3 from the Yellow Hammer State, which is a good state to go recruiting. So yeah, good. Things are still tracking for the QB target in this class for the Gamecocks. Okay, I got some notes here. I'm reading down. This is a surprise in a way, and not that I don't ever have faith in Lonnie Teasley. And look, I don't know if it'll hold or not, because this guy's got Ole Miss and Tennessee coming up to visit. Kamari Blair, the offensive tackle from Clarksville, Tennessee, 6'6", 280. And, he was kind of a guy that popped on the radar, wasn't an early offer guy. Carolina kind of offered when everybody else did. He's a Tennessee player, although Clarksville's far from Knoxville. Not that far, not Memphis far, but it's outside of Nashville, going up towards Kentucky, Fort Campbell area. It's where Austin P is, Austin P State University. And then there's good football there. But, so he kind of jumped on the radar. Tennessee, gosh, I guess who's on the roster from Tennessee now? You have Max Kelly, the kicker, and then Rodney Newsome from Memphis, who came in from the transfer portal from Western Kentucky. But Tennessee, Carolina has some guys here and there. So it's not like a state that they blanket cover. They did get bus champ era. They got some guys out of there. Bobby Bentley did a good job up there recruiting. But so you kind of look and you're trying to read the tea leaves in this business a lot, which I think we do pretty good at it since we're trying to read the mind of high school kids. There's keys. And I'm like, well, he's going to come visit. They're going to shoot their shot or whatever. 4-star guy per composite, high 3 per 24/7 Sports. But then I start getting messages over the weekend. I think they're going to get him, blah, 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 all this other stuff. He did not commit, at least publicly, but had about as good of a visit as far as making up ground goes, if there was ground to make up, assuming everybody wasn't even. Whoever they trailed, I think Carolina's even with right now. If everybody was even coming in, I think Carolina leads right now. Will it hold, though, is the question. Because a lot of times guys that kind of, their recruitment is boom, here we go. Boom, here's all these offers. It's kind of like going to the buffet. The first thing you see, or let's use that. Let's not say buffet or smorgasbord today. Let's use like an old K&W cafeteria reference since I'm in a good mood. You're going to K&W, and for those of you who know what the hell I'm talking about, and you have like the salads and the Jello and like the potato salad, and they're kind of like appetizers. And boy, that looks good. And you're like, man, I'm gonna enjoy eating this potato salad. Well, then you get on down there, and there's the hamburger steak and the fried chicken and the fried perch, if that's your thing, the meatloaf. Ooh, well, that's good. Maybe I like that a little bit. I'm gonna enjoy that better than potato salad. And then you get on down, and there's that mac and cheese and fried okra or squash casserole or pinto bean, whatever you get at K&W. And you're like, oh, wow. And you've long forgotten about the potato salad. And don't be started on the custard pie and the biscuit at the end. There's no K&W or anything like it in Chicagoland, by the way. My grandmother used to take me there when I was a little boy. She was a grandmother, so she obviously, that's what people love. When you get older, you love K&W. And she'd call me. I'm saying, Marty, will you get JC and old Southern lady? We're gonna go to the K&W today to go out to eat. A divine woman, my grandmother, my mother's side. K&W right there on the bypass in Myrtle Beach. Anyway, I usually don't get off topic like that on coffee. It's usually on the show, so I need to shut up. But so look, Kamari Blair, if it holds, it's great, because I watched this film, and it's kind of neat if you go on Huddle and watch it. I would put it here on the thing, but YouTube will hit me with a copyright infringement. So on his huddle film, Kamari Blair has a all 22 angle, which is awesome for high schools. More high schools could do that. That'd be great. I don't know, using a drone up there or whatever. And he is a big athletic guy, and he plays some defense too. He's quick twitch, physical. Is raw as far as like the technique of playing offensive line. He's got to work on all that. Um, there's if I have some questions, the flexibility a little bit as far as his lower body, that kind of thing. But he's every bit a 4 star. I mean, I don't think he's not. Without seeing everybody else that could end up being special in time. There's a lot to love about him, but like a lot of offensive linemen, you're going to wait down the road, but I mean, you got to keep stacking those guys. And Carolina's done it. This is the best offensive line recruiting for the last few years South Carolina's ever done since I've been alive. Let me back up. Since I've been following, all right, let me back up. The modern recruiting era, okay, which is about since 2000, this century, since it's been tracked like it is now, with star ratings and complete coverage, and there's way more information about these guys than there was in the 80s, made way more eyeballs on these guys. I've never seen South Carolina recruit on paper like this on the offensive line ever. And I hope it pays off. I really do. It should start paying off as soon as this year. Like I've always said, never going to be perfect at that position. You're going to get beat. Georgia gets beat. Alabama gets beat. Texas gets beat. Everybody that recruits well on the O-line has their day. We've seen it because the defenses are really, really good. But what you want it to be is not a liability, and you certainly don't want to give up how many 36 sacks. You want to go compete, and sometimes you can compete with under the radar guys, and they're really good. Sometimes, you go to battle with highly rated guys and you can compete. And those are all different journeys individually. Sometimes you'll have a 3-star that's better than a 5-star at offensive tackle, but the 5-star is pretty good, and those are your 2 tackles. So it just depends. I don't want to say a crapshoot, but like I explained, we got into a rankings discussion on thebigspur.com over the weekend, star rating discussion. It's a classic, do stars matter? And they do, but I think there's some zealotry out there, mainly about people that aren't really, that are either too close to recruiting, so they're kind of waving the banner, or they don't really know a lot. I've struggled with this because it's like yes and no. I mean, you're talking about something that hits at about a 60% clip. And then I started thinking about it. So here's what I'm going to say from now on about this subject, because sometimes the reaction when a 3-star commits somewhere, and it's not. I don't expect people to. I mean, you don't have to shoot fireworks off and jump for joy and send gifts on Twitter or X or jump up and down and scare the wife and kids. When they commit. I mean, I understand some commitments are bigger, but just believe me, I've been in this business for a long time. But there's been, years where there's some venom, not from just this fan base, but others, about 3-star guys coming in, and then they end up being all conference and in the NFL. I'm just saying individually, not collectively, individually. And if you sit there and trash an entire class before it sets foot on campus, that's just individually insulting 24 guys. Individually, I don't like it because there's a lot of 3-stars that get drafted because there's a lot of 3-stars. And there's no magic, if you're an 89.001 and you're a 3, the highest 3, and then there's an 89.003 and you're right there toward the bottom of the 4s, there's really minimal difference. That's not a magic, but what it is this. It's odds, which is why, the blue chip ratio works because you're playing the odds, right? It's just like Vegas. Vegas wins because they're good at setting the odds. Do teams cover the spread? Yes. Do teams fail to cover the spread? Yes. Are there upsets? Absolutely. Do money lines hit? Absolutely. It happens. But percentage wise, the safe bet is this. And so here's what it is. There's fewer 4 and 5 stars, but so percentage wise, a higher percentage of fives get drafted, a higher percentage of fours get drafted. Like I mentioned, there's a bunch of 3 stars, a bunch of probably 1,000 3 stars. And what I think I may start doing on 24/7 Sports Composite, they rank all 1,000 of them. The computer ranks all 1,000 of them in an order. So maybe I kind of dig into like how often do like top 500 guys hit? How often does 700 hit? That kind of thing. Is there a better 3 star range to be in? That kind of thing. But percentage wise, yeah. So your odds are higher. So yeah, it's just like being a lined favorite versus a 2 touchdown underdog. Doesn't mean you can't win, but you'd rather be the favorite, right? Going into the game, but then you still got to play the game. So that's kind of how I look at it. And I'm comfortable with that because that's still a reason to be excited because you set yourself up for success odds wise. The odds say this is that. So I finally, after struggling with that for the last few years, arrived at kind of what is this? What does this really mean? And so I'm digging it. I still don't think, I don't care for the list of, number one, I don't care for the transfer portal rankings having anything to do with the high school rankings. Number two, I don't care for the articles where, there's 10 players listed that were 3 stars that were really good, and everybody acts like it's a miracle they ended up being good. Like they've succeeded, and like they're Rudy or something athletically. No, they just those 10 probably should have been in your 4 star range, and you just missed, just like I did when I did it, just like everybody else did when they did it. Nobody, sometimes it kind of comes across as, this is the authority, and this is right no matter what, and anything that happens that's not right is a total shock. Those types of articles and things. I'm not saying that's the intent. That's just how I take it. But rankings are odds. Odds are, collectively too, because you add it all up. Well, how many blue chips do you have? Well, there's a better percentage chance your roster hits and can compete for championships. Doesn't mean you can't without it. You just face longer odds. So there you go with that. Back to the player updates. 2 defensive backs visited this weekend that I really like. Kosi Barnes from Greensboro Grimsley is another 6'2 and a half, 180-pound defensive back. They're pitching a lot of these guys on all of the above. Yeah, you could be a safety, nickel, could be a corner, and that's good. That's kind of what they do anyway. Greensboro, North Carolina Grimsley, so another Tar Heel State player. Really long, really good upside. Again, a Torian Gray find. Had a really good visit, I think. Enjoyed the visit as far as, everybody mentions the family atmosphere, how real they are. He had a long talk with Coach Gray. I think Carolina's right there. He, based on his visits, he's going to leave the state of North Carolina. Carolina has obviously home field advantage, proximity advantage. Miami, Mississippi State, Kentucky are the next 3. Be curious to see what Miami does with this guy. They recruit pretty well, obviously, and Miami's appealing. Mississippi State, obviously, and Kentucky have their SEC programs. They have NIL. You don't know with those situations what, if they may offer a little more, if that's what he wants or whatever. Of course, KJ Johnson was worried about West Virginia and laid that out, but looks like that will be all for nothing today. So I like Barnes. We'll see if they get him. A long way to go, but certainly think it's probable, if not likely. Joel Combe. I like this guy. And Carolina, honestly, man, we talk about states and regions, and Carolina's got 20 players on its roster from Georgia. This cycle, 2026, they may not sign but 1 or 2. A handful, if you will. But he is from Georgia, Kell High School in Marietta, home, I believe, of Jonathan Dwyer, maybe some others. Carolina get a player from Kell? I don't. I got to think on that for a little bit. I think Wendell Gregory was from Marietta High School. I don't have it in front of me, but I don't want to spend much time on that. Anyway, hard hitting guy, 6'1", 190. They talked to him about a flex nickel safety, maybe corner for him. Really great athlete, Atlanta area. A lot of good players come out of there. He's going to commit on July 9th. So commitment is next month. A lot of these guys will commit. You got Clark on the 2nd, July 9th. We're going to be off the air as far as live shows go during that time. But I'm going to try to keep you guys posted right here. Who knows? I may do a surprise live show. Anyway, everybody else going on vacation. Not me. Not all JC. My vacation is the wing eating contest coming up in 12 days, actually. June 21st, CB 18 Bar and Grill and 5 Points. My man Cox by 90, Cocky Hospitality. We're all putting it on free of charge. But go follow Cox by 90 on X and get that link, the Eventbrite link. I'm also going to put it up on thebigspur.com today. If you register, just let us know you're coming. You get a free raffle ticket. Last year, Cornbread Cowboy was there. Don't know if Cornbread will be there this year. I know John Strickland's planning on showing up. I'm going to be there. My wife, bringing the wife down this time. So come on out. It's a blast. There's a dunk tank, and it gets fun. A lot of fun at CB 18 right there in 5 Points in Columbia. So that's my vacation. So I'll be around during this commit week or whatever. Clark on the 2nd and Combe on the 9th. But I feel good about Combe, and I like him. And he visited Missouri last week. I think Carolina probably felt like, they probably feel like they're a little bit ahead there, based on his comments. Wisconsin is coming up next. And then Tennessee. The Vols always lurk. And with Marietta, Cobb County kids, Tennessee's very good. They're very, very good, folks. Cobb County in Atlanta. So we'll see what happens there. But I like this kid. I think he's really, really good. Okay, so that's just about it from the weekend. Don't forget, Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show is coming up. Today, I believe Mike Morgan's in to co-host a normal schedule, Whittle on all things, John Whittle. And then the show with Mad Dog Mullinax and myself will be rocking and rolling this afternoon. Lots of off-topic and recruiting and questions from the Nana Sports chat box. It'll be a good show as always. And then throughout the week, there may not be a coffee on Friday. Now, there's no official visitors this weekend. So fear not. I've got to do a garage sale at the crib from 9 to 3, and I'm going to have to get up and set that because the wife has to work. So I am the garage sale manager for the weekend. So on Friday, probably no show, no coffee. And then next week to allow for me to travel to Columbia, probably no coffee Thursday. Definitely no show on a couple of days. But anyway, we'll get all that schedule out pretty soon. Be sure to check out ChiefSportsNetwork.com, TheBigSpur.com, CollegeFootballForever.com. We did have an SEC Sunday night last night up on our YouTube channels. Please like, subscribe, and share on the YouTube channel. And if you're looking for Father's Day gifts, obviously, Palmetto Golf and Belt, PalmettoGolfing.com. Proud sponsor of the Big Spur Coffee and all that right here to go. I didn't talk about the house settlement because I felt like you'd like to know more about Gamecock recruiting this morning, but that will also be discussed ad nauseum. We've already discussed it ad nauseum, but certainly we'll have some takes and some things on that later today on the show. Also had some stuff up for VIP members about that on Saturday on thebigspur.com. It's a pretty good read. From what they say. They tell me it's the best read perhaps ever. Somebody actually did say that. Anyway, go check it out if you're not a member on TBS. This has been Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Have a wonderful Monday, everyone, and we will holla at you soon.